from Unique in the Creek, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a Rita flower. This flower is a petal that you cut in half, and you can do it on the Unique in the Creek large board or small board, whichever one you wish. Obviously, if you use the large board, it's going to give you a larger size flower, which is my preference. But you can use it on the small board as well, doing the exact same techniques that I'm going to show you today. So I'm going to be using this large board. I'm also going to be using this it's 5.5 inch styrofoam center that I have cut in half, and I have painted it with just a dollar store craft paint, and I'm going to put pom-poms around it. So I'm going to do that first. Now you can use any kind of center you want on your flower. I do have many tutorials on different centers. This one is one of my favorites because the pom-poms just are fuzzy and it just makes it look so pretty. And the rest of the flower I'm going to be doing a two-tone pink with a yellow center. I think it's going to look fabulous. So the first thing I'm going to get started on, even though my flower center is dry, I am going to put a small piece of wax paper down, even though I got some on there. And I like to work on the wax paper so I don't get glue and stuff all over my cutting mat. And then once I'm done my center, I can roll up this wax paper and just throw it in the garbage. So like I said, this is a 5.5 inch styrofoam ball. You can buy it at any craft stores. And I cut it in half. The easiest way I found to cut styrofoam ball in half is to use a styrofoam cutter. Okay, I did purchase these Pom-Pom Garlands. Now you can use individual pom-poms that are sold at all craft stores and online. These pom-poms, however, are all in one single line. So we're going to start it at the top, and I'm just going to keep wrapping around. This is really, really easy with the garlands. You can, like I said, the pom-poms, you would do the same thing. You would just individually glue the pom-poms going around, and it basically does the same effect. I like to paint the styrofoam whatever color I'm using the center for, just in case there's gaps in between the pom-poms and you don't see the white through it. So if I was doing a purple pom-pom center, I would paint my center purple. And like I said, I just use a simple craft paint and a styrofoam brush and just quickly give it a coat. You don't need to have it perfect. You can see it's streaky, no big deal. So you're going to have your glue gun heated up, and we're going to start in the center, and I believe about right here is the center. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue right in the center here, and take my pom-pom garland and put that first pom-pom right in the center there and hold it down. From here, I'm going to start wrapping the pom-pom, going around in a circle all the way down to the edge of this styrofoam. Now with the garland, it does not take long to do this. With the individual pom-poms, it doesn't take long either, but this the pom-pom garland is just a little bit faster. And you're just gonna wrap around. Now I don't put too much glue because the hot glue does dry pretty fast. So you can see how I started that. And just keep going around. Like I said, it's quite easy. One of my very favorites to do. And you can buy these pom-pom garlands online and at your local craft stores. Just search Pom-Pom Garland. This one happens to be a local dollar store that is here called Dollarama. I paid $1.25 for one garland, and it is 4 feet long. And you don't need too much glue, because once the pom-poms stick to the glue, they pretty much stick to the glue. When I'm finished this, we're going to put a Chanel stem or a pipe cleaner on the back of the center with a couple floral pins, and it'll be ready to attach when our flower is done. Now, if you do have a styrofoam cutter, you can cut it in half, your centers, but you can see how high this is. You can also cut straight down and make this center a little bit lower in height. You can see this is pretty high. So if it's a little too high for you, then, like I said, just cut it down. So there's our first garland, and I'm just going to continue on with the second one. Now I like to go pretty fast because the hot glue does dry quite quickly. And then once this is dry, you can pull off any little glue strings that you may have stuck on your pom-poms. So you can see how fast this is going. The garland is quite easy to work with. How there's a space missed there, but will go back and fill it in with a pom-pom that I'll just cut off the garland. So I'm not too sure what happened there, but it's an easy fix. So these, doing these with brown pom-poms makes a really great sunflower center. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll make sure that this last one is really glued down well. Okay, then I'm going to cut it off right at this pom-pom here, just like that. And then I have one little spot, I'm not sure what happened there, but we'll just cut one of these pom-poms off. Just put a little glue in there and we'll just shove it down in there. There we go. Okay, so our center is all done. Looks really cool. Almost kind of looks like a beehive. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to take a couple Chanel stems and a floral pin, couple of floral pins. So you can buy floral pins at any of your craft stores. or on Amazon. I believe you can buy Pom-Pom Garland on Amazon as well. And then take a couple Chanel stems. So once we're done, we're just going to feed it down in the middle holes here. And your center will be so easy to attach. So I put some glue in the middle. I'm going to put a little bit more and cross this over. So you only need 2 Chanel stems. These are just normal size Chanel stems. You can get these at the dollar store. Okay, and now I like to go down and pin. Now these are really, really long floral pins, but this is quite a large piece of styrofoam. You can cut the floral pins down if you'd like, if they're too long, with just some wire cutters. All right, I'm going to press this down. Okay, and then I'm just going to apply a little bit of hot glue right over top of that, and we're going to let this dry. So we made a really, really cute flower center in a matter of like 5 minutes. Okay, let's put this to the side, and we're going to start constructing our flower. Clean this up. Got glue on my cutting mat. Anyways, okay, wrap this all up. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be doing the Rita flower. The only rows we're going to be using is row 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is preload the board. Now you can do this 1 row at a time if that makes it simpler for you, or you can do the whole board, preload the whole board, and you'll get quite a few zip ties on there, but it does cut down on time if you preload the board all at once and then start putting your petals in. So I'm going to show you, I'm almost done preloading this one. So as you can see, it does look a little bit confusing with all these zip ties in it, but when you flip it over, it does make a lot of sense, because once you're finished preloading your whole board, this whole circumference of 2, 3, and 4 will be a complete circle of zip ties going around. Okay, so I'm going to finish that in a sec, but I'm going to show you how to preload each zip tie. We are going to use, these are the normal sets of holes. Okay, so you go down 1 hole, up the other on row 2, and when you go down, you want the flat part and the tail to go in to each other, and you'll hear a zipping sound. Okay, when you tug on that, that should not come open. And we'll do that again. So when you are doing it, you're using the flat part of the head, and the tail is going into the flat part. So the zip tie does consist of like almost a beveled head. So always remember the flat part and the tail need to go together. So what I'm going to do is I've preloaded the normal set of holes, but I'm also going to go down this same hole, and we call this a shared hole because there's already a zip tie in there. And I'm going to go back up this hole here and do the same thing. I'm going to hear a couple of the zipping sounds, give it a tug, and it's locked in. So you're going to go around and do all of circumference 2 just like this. Okay, so, and then when you flip over the back, this whole row will look like just a bunch of zip tie backs. And I'm going to do this one. I like to do preload I like to preload my board all at the same time. So get them all in, and then I don't have to worry about stopping and starting to preload each row. However, you can do that for the first few that you start, or that you've done, or that you do. So down, up, and zip. It's very easy. It's a little monotonous, but if you're kicked back in your chair and watching a movie or something, you can preload a couple of these, and then you have them always, you know, you always have a board loaded and ready to go. So this board is completely loaded, and I'm going to flip it over and show you. If you have an empty spot on the back, you know you've missed one. So you can see I got completely around 2, completely around 3, nope, there's missing one right here. So it's not complete there, so I know I'm missing a zip tie there. So I'm just going to fill that one in. So I'm going to go down and up and lock it. So this board is loaded and locked and ready to receive petals. If you want to do it row by row, then you would preload this row, then you put all your petals in, like I'm going to show you in the next minute. And then once that row is completely finished with your petals, then you're going to move on to row 3, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go down and up the normal set of holes, but you're now going to go, and this is quite a stretch, so you do need to use at least 6.5 inch or higher, so about 8 inches of an 18-pound zip tie. These are 6.5, and they just work. Barely, but they do work. You'll see that a lot of people will talk about drilling holes in the board, and what they do is they'll drill, just with a normal drill, an extra hole in the middle here. That way there's not such a huge gap that they have to fill in this section. I don't add extra holes because I do know there's a lot of people that don't have access to power tools, and I really don't like drilling into them, because once I show you the way I do it, it works just fine without having to pull out the old power tools. Okay, so you can see, you'll continue on with this. Once that's filled with petals, you can move on to this, fill it up with petals, and then of course you'll move on to 4, and you'll go down and up with the holes, the sets of holes, and then again a shared hole, down and up until circumference 4 is completely full with zip ties. Again, just flip it over, see if there's any empty spots you're missing. Okay, so you would continue this, so it'll be one continuous circle of zip ties. And then row 5, you just need 4 more zip ties, and it's just the normal set of holes that are together. So 1, put the zip ties down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so like I said, you can do 1 row at a time to preload, and then put your petals in and do the next one, put your petals in, do the next one, put your petals in, and so on. Or you can do it like I did on this board, where I preloaded it all and it's all filled in. Okay, so our board is ready to go. now we need to make our petals. The mesh of choice for this Rita flower is a poly burlap. Now poly burlap is quite a thick mesh. It's very it's heavy plastic. The holes in the spaces in between the strips or the lines here, they're quite wide, and this mesh, if you're going to make a flower like this or a sunflower, it does need to be heat sealed at the end. I do have a couple videos, how-to videos on how to do that on our YouTube channel, so you can check that one out. But I have heat sealed these pieces, and they are 10 by 10. So you need 10 by 10 pieces, okay? And I'm using a light pink, and I'm using a more darker pink, and I'm going to be alternating each pink color, and we're going to have a yellow center. It's going to be a very spring looking flower. It's going to be gorgeous. Now there's a few ways you can do this. I'm going to show you a few. If your board is already loaded and it's ready to go, what you can do is make your petals and place them in the zip ties as you're making them. And what I mean by that is, okay, so you got your mesh, it's 10 by 10, okay, that's the serged edge, which I call the serged edge, it's the finished edge. And then this edge is a little bit more jagged, and that's the edge I have heat sealed with my impulse sealer. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to lay your mesh piece in front of you. It's going to have like a curl. It's a natural curl to the mesh. Almost looks like a U shape. That's what you want in front of you. Then you're going to turn it into a diamond shape, just like this. Curl is still up. You need to have, when you have the top corner, you want to make sure on your right side that there is a finished or serged edge always on the right side. This will make sure that when you do your petals, all the petals are going the same way, because they do have a bit of a curve to them, and we want to keep the curve going the same way all the time. So rule of thumb is, if you are cutting, or if you're making this flower, always just make sure that the serged edge, when you put it in a diamond, is on the right side. Okay, keep that in mind. It might take a bit of practice, and you'll be able to tell when you go to put the petal in your flower, if the serged edge is not to the right, it will look funny. Okay, so I have it in a diamond shape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top corner and I'm going to bring it right down to meet the bottom corner, just like this. Now this is giving me a triangle shape. Okay, and you're going to fold it down nicely to make sure the edges meet, just like that. Okay. Now what you're going to do is, I like to just tuck a little piece of the corner of this under, and I'm going to scrunch from this corner right up the center of this petal. Okay, so what I've done is I folded this over, met the corner, I have my edges somewhat even. Flip this up, and I'm going to scrunch like an accordion style with my pointer fingers and my thumb, and I'm going to scrunch right up the center. And as you can see there, it's making folds, and you're going to do this right up the center. Okay, this is what you're going to have. It's going to look like this. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to flip this upwards. And when you do this, what you're doing is kind of pushing these down to measure to see if each petal is about the same length, and this one seems to be okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 clothespins. It doesn't matter if they're wood, plastic. I use these metal clothespins I got at Home Depot. These are almost like clamps, and they hold really well. What you're going to do is you're going to take one of these clothespins and you're just going to clip it at the bottom of one of the petals. And as you can see, this curved part, my finger is still in there because that is the center. Okay, that is the center of our petal. And now I'm going to put one on the other side. So this is what it looks like. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right in between the 2 clothespins, right in the center. Now this is pretty thick, like I said before. And now I have 2 separate petals. With this flower, you can do 1 color or you can do up to 4 colors by just alternating. Okay, and now that you've got your separate petals, you can take your board, and like I said, we'll be starting on row 2. Just pick really anywhere. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that again. Do I have any hot pink left? Just 1 second. Again, curve. Right side is your serged edge or your finished edge. Got it in a triangle. You're going to bring the top down to the bottom and just neatly make sure that the edges are matching, just like that. Okay, I tuck this under just a wee bit and then scrunch right up the middle, making like an accordion fold. And then I'm going to flip this up. Now, as you can see, one petal seems to be longer than the other petal. So what you'll do is just where you've pinched it, just kind of move it up, keep it pinched, and there we go. So we got the same size petal. I'm going to take another 2 clothespins and in between where my finger is, I'm going to put 1 clothespin and then another clothespin. Okay, and now I'm going to cut down the middle. So now we have 4 petals, 2 of dark pink and 2 of light pink. So that's how you can do it if you're going to just apply your petals as you're making your wreath. So you're going to take one of your petals, doesn't matter which color you start with, but we're going to make a pattern of dark pink, light pink, dark pink, light pink. Okay, so I'm going to take this clothespin off. And now I always want to make sure when I put my petal in, that finished edge is always going the same way, which is to the right of me. Okay, so I'm going to take the end. Now don't let this go. We're going to feed this end of this petal into one of these zip ties on row 2. So you're going to go in about 1/2 inch. Okay, and you're going to zip this up nice and tight. You may want to have some needle nose pliers handy because it's really helpful to pull these zip ties tight, and it saves your fingers. Okay, that's really important. So if you're going to do it with needle nose pliers, You're going to need some wire cutters or duller scissors to snip off these zip tie tails. You don't want to use your good, nice, sharp ribbon scissors to do this because it will dull your ribbon scissors really, really fast, okay? So just grab yourself some cheaper snips. We will be having snips in each of our kits that are coming out shortly. But for now, you can buy a wire cutter like similar to this in the jewelry section at any of the craft stores. And I also have a link on my website for Amazon to buy these wire snippers as well. And these ones I really like because you put them in the palm of your hand and you can get right down right on top of the zip tie head, and then you cut right at the head and it gets the whole thing. Now I have a little cup here. I like to keep some kind of container to put all my zip tie ends into. Makes cleanup a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to put a light pink in, and I'm going to use my zip tie gun. Now, if you're going to be doing a lot of Unique in the Creek wreaths, saying that you do not have to use zip ties. You can use pipe cleaners. I love zip ties. I don't like the twisting of the pipe cleaners. I like the nice clean backs that the wreaths will have when you use the zip ties. The zip ties are in there nice and tight, so I know they're going to stay in there for a long time. And they're just stronger. So you can use the pliers and the nippers, or you can get yourself one of these zip tie guns, they're called. This one I got off Amazon. It's a bit heavy. It is metal. I've had it for quite a while, and I love this thing. It will save on your hands and your time immensely. I think it's around maybe $15 on Amazon. They do sell some at Harbor Freight that are plastic. They're not very good, so I would just buy the metal one and skip the headache of the plastic one breaking on you. I do have, like I said, a link on my Amazon or on my YouTube, on my website for this exact one that I bought. So I'm going to use this one for the next petal, which is going to be a light pink. So I'm going to take my clothespin off, and I want to make sure that the petal looks really nice and that the finished edge is to the right. And again, I'm going to take the tail of it, put it about a ½ an inch into the zip tie, pull nice and tight. Okay, now you can either use your nippers, or this gun will tighten it a little bit tighter, plus cut off the zip tie when it's tight, just like that. So it takes a little bit of use to getting used to, but it is quite easy. You just take the tail of the zip tie, slide it in this little space here, squeeze the trigger, and you may have to squeeze it a few times depending how loose your zip tie is. And then once it's tight enough, it will cut it off right at the base of the zip tie. Okay? And now I'm going to do the dark pink. The serged edge is at the right side of it, about halfway in. Now, I just kind of pull as much as I can with my fingers without hurting it. Oh, that one didn't work. Pull and cut with your wire cutters or nippers, whatever they're called. Okay, and now we have the pink. So I'm going to take my paper clip or clothespin off. Make sure my petal looks really nice and neat, serged edge to the right. I'm going to feed about 1/2 inch in there. Pull this as much as you can, and then you can get your gun. Okay, now when I'm doing these flowers, I like to put a little bit of glue, go right across from the board, right across the tail to the other side of the board. This just ensures that if perhaps some, you know, the wreath falls off the door or something, and somebody goes to grab it by the petal's not going to pull out of the zip tie. So it's just a double protection, especially for these wider spaces, because the zip tie is not as tight as, say, for instance, this smaller space here. So you can do this whole circumference. Once it's done, just go around with your glue gun and glue all those in. Okay? So that is how you can do with clothespins, and make it as you go. The other way, which the way I really like to do it, is I like to pre-make my petals. So I sat and watched an episode of Vanderpump Rules, because I'm a reality show junkie. And I sat and made all kinds of individual petals. I probably made too many, but that's okay. And they're all individual. And the way I did this, and like I said, this is my preference, because I can get it all done at once, is what I do is I'm going to take my mesh, and for this you need these little tiny rubber bands. You get them at Dollar Tree. In the hair section, there's a 500 pack for $1, so they're not expensive whatsoever. I have a little container here. Oh, it's almost empty, and I have them in there. So I'm going to bring a couple of these out. So I have them handy here. Okay, so I'm going to start it off the same way, serged edge on the right in a diamond shape. You're going to take the top, fold it down to the bottom, making sure your edges line up really nice. Now if it's a 10-inch piece, this should line up almost perfectly. Okay, just like that. Now what you can do is you can do it the same way as you did it with the clothespins, by scrunching up and clothespinning, cutting it, and then as soon as you take the clothespin off, you can wrap it with one of these little elastic bands, and I'll show you that way. So again, you're going to tuck it under a little bit, go straight up, flip them, just like that. Put your pipe or your clothespins on, cut it down the center. Okay, now you can take your clothespin off, making sure that your serged edge is at the right, and take one of these little elastic bands and go just right around the bottom twice, just like that. And you have a petal ready to go. And I have some bins. You can use shopping bags or whatever to throw your pre-made petals in. And always remember that you want the serged edge to the right. Okay, and there's two of the dark pink. Now another way you can do it, which is what I was doing for all of these is, again, triangle or diamond, serged edge to the right, you're going to bring it down. Flatten it. And then what I did is I got something with weight and I put it on the corner here. These are called pearly weights. They're just a clear acrylic that you can use for cutting or whatever. And then I took another one. You can do a ruler, you can do whatever you have, you just need a straight edge. And I put the corner, I just have it on 15. I lined this up, and this gives you perfect equal sides every single time. You get your rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut right up the center, just like that. I'm going to take this pearly weight off, make sure it's lined up, scrunch it along the bottom, and put an elastic. Go around twice, and then you have another petal. I'm going to take this one. Now this one I just have to flip it over because I want to make sure that the serged edge is to the right. Scrunch along the bottom. Take your little elastic and go around twice. Doing it that way ensures your petal is the exact same size every time. So if your 10-inch piece of mesh is accurate, your petals will be exactly the same. So there's a few ways you can cut them. Like I said, this is my favorite. I have a ton of petals already made, probably enough for 2 flowers, which is great because like I said, I just sat here and watched my shows and cut mesh. So I'll do that again. I just put something with weight on the corner to hold that down, but you do need a straight edge. Like I said, you can use a ruler, and then I use the guideline. So I always put the tip of the corner on the 15, and then I line up my straight edge with the 15 here. Just go straight up with my rotary cutter and scrunch along the bottom, and as you can see, my serged edge is still on the right, and I keep repeating that because it's really important so that your flower looks the way it's supposed to look. And then this one, you just flip it over so you have your edge on the right, and then you can actually be very meticulous this way and making sure all your edges are lined up and you don't see any of the unfinished edges. So you can take a little bit more extra time cutting your petals this way. I don't know why I closed this. Rather than just using the clothespin method and cutting in between. So that's just a few ways. You can choose how you would like to do it. And you can do this sitting in your lap. So if you have a cutting surface in your lap, usually I use, where's my little thing? I have this small, almost laptop cutting mat I use all the time. I use this right on my lap in my recliner with my feet up. Do all my cutting, folding, because it's nice to have a smooth surface when you're scrunching, and elastic, throw it in a plastic bag or a bin like I have, and then you can just, once your board is all loaded, basically it's just shoving them all in. So now I will show you how fast this can go when you have all your stuff already prepped. Okay, next one is going to be a dark pink. So I'll just bring a couple of my bins in front of me and just start pumping them in. You do not have to take those little elastics off. They will just disintegrate. You'll never see them again. Nobody will know they're on there. Oops. Now this, I just did this exactly what you don't want to see, but it's probably a good thing. As you can see, I did not pay attention and have my serged edge going towards the right, and now it's kind of made a funny looking gap here. It's not what we want to do. So maybe I did that on purpose. Yeah, I did that on purpose. But no problem. All I have to do is cut that zip tie off, put a new one in, and we'll continue on and pretend it didn't even happen. Happy accidents. Pay attention this time. There we go. That's better. Now you do not have to cut your zip ties every time you put it in. This will also save time for you if you just zip tie them all, then cut all the tails, and then go around with your glue. You will have this flower done in no time. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, if you wanted to use 3 or 4 colors, you would do the exact same thing, but just keep using a pattern. Or you could do the outside row all one color, the next row all another color. It's just sky's the limit. And you can do this with any kind of petal, not just this petal. This petal just seems to be quite a popular petal right at the moment. But there's just so many flower variations out there that you can make. And poly burlap, everybody knows, is not my favorite mesh whatsoever, because you do have to heat seal it and everything. But I have to give it credit where credit is due. It makes one fabulous sunflower or Rita flower like this. Those are the only 2 flowers I would probably ever use poly burlap on, only because you can see the edges. You can do this same petal with normal deco mesh as well. You just want to make sure the quality of deco mesh is a very good one. If you like this petal and you want to try it with a normal deco mesh, I would highly recommend just like a wide foil deco mesh. It is more of a better quality, and it will give you the coverage you need. So you just can experiment around, play with different colors. You can make an ombre. So if I had one shade of a lighter pink, I would have did dark pink, medium pink, light pink, and made an ombre flower. I do believe I have some lighter pink poly burlap coming in a few weeks. But I wanted to get this tutorial done and published. Some of you will have seen that I did a black and white one already with a red center. There was just way too much editing in that video. So I just decided it would be much easier if I just went and redid a whole new video. Plus I was dying to see what the pink and dark pink and light pink with a yellow center look like. Row 2 does take the longest time. If you want your flower even bigger than it's going to be, because it will end up being about 28 inches in diameter, you can make it even bigger by using these outer 8 holes of circumference number 1, and it will make it even bigger. I have enough petals cut that I can make it a little bit bigger, but I'll do that at the end. So row number 2 is using 32 half petals. Okay, so you need 16 full petals, but 32 half petals, because there's 16 normal sets of holes, and as you can see, we've used in between. So that's 32. I like the needle nose pliers because you can get it pretty tight, and it does save a lot on your fingers when you're pulling these. So as you can see, I'm making sure that my serged edge is always going around the same way, always to the right. And these are really fun to make, and they're easy. The prep for them is just a little bit of work. But once you have the prep done, throwing it together is nothing. Very easy, as long as you can follow a pattern. Now, you don't even have to use, you can use the same color for the whole wreath. Nobody says you have to use one color. You can also, a lot of people for the next row throw in some window pane mesh that's poly burlap. That is very pretty as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make sure around and make sure this nice serged edges is always the edge that is on top of the petal, just like that. And that will make sure your flower is consistent. And then I'm going to go around and cut off all these tails really quick. Throw some hot glue on there, and we'll get on to the next one. Alrighty. Where did I start? Right here. Okay, so all going the same. Let's get our glue, our zip tie gun, and get these all snipped. So as you can see, with a zip tie gun, you can do this quite quickly. It's tightening it as tight as you can and cutting off the tail of the zip tie. And then having a little bucket will keep for easy cleanup. Now we're going to be doing the whole flower like this. our flower center is ready to go too. Okay, so all that's done. Now I'm going to go around with my hot glue, and I think I started here, and I'm just going to go over top, making sure that the glue is hitting the board as well as going over top. This is optional to do, but I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's just extra precaution that those petals are not going to go anywhere. They're not going to move around. They're not going to fall out if they're grabbed. And it only takes a few seconds to do. And on the finished wreath, you will not see the zip ties, you will not see the glue, because everything layers over top of each other. There we go, we're done. Right there. Okay, now we're moving on to the next one. Okay, so I guess it doesn't really matter what color I start with. So I'll start with a pink here. Now, this one right here, there's quite a bit of a reach for the zip tie. What you can do is you can add extra petals here if you'd like. So you have a pink right here. There is enough room in here to have 2 more petals. So I think I got tons of petals cut, so I think I'm going to try it. So I'm going to put 2 petals in this zip tie. Alright, and pull this tight as it'll go, because we will go over it with glue. So if you shift one over as far as it can go to the left, as far as it can go to the right, you're going to have a really full looking flower. If you are wanting to save on poly burlap, because it is a bit pricey, you don't have to put 2 in this section. You could just put 1, make sure it's in the middle, and zip it up tight. Okay? Nobody will notice that you kind of cut back on some of the petals, because, well, they won't know. Because what they will see on the back is just zip ties. They have no idea what you've done on the front of the board. So get it as tight as you can. But and then push it left, push it right. And we got lots of petals in here. We want to make sure they're laying flat and nothing's caught. So much nicer when your petals are already pre-made. So normally if I wasn't doing a tutorial, I would still be watching my reality TV as I'm sticking these in. So you do it in stages, and you can do it from the comfort of your recliner or your chair watching TV. Like I said, if you can follow a pattern, this is pretty much a no-brainer. Especially once you get the hang of actually making the petal. So this row, I'll have to count how many pieces we use. Straggler here. You will still have a few little strings you may have to. I personally would never make a flower with poly burlap without heat sealing it, because it will just keep fraying and fraying. Until it pretty much disintegrates. Again, I'm still making sure all the finished edges, serged edges, are at the right side. Okay, we're done that row. Pull these tight. I'm going to go around and with the gun again. Spinning your wreath around as you're doing this. Piece of tail. There we go. All right, all done. Let's make sure our petals are nice, all going the right way before we start gluing it in. Once it's glued in, you're pretty much committed. Looks good to me. I always have a little extra glue stick as I'm going around and around. Now you don't have to do the ones that are in the normal actual slotted holes that we normally use, but a little extra glue, a little extra security. And even for this, like this step, you do not have to use like really, really good glue, because it will bond to the plastic, and it's just a secondary security measure for it. So you don't have to waste your good Gorilla Glue sticks or Surebonder glue sticks. But that's all I have anyway, so. Going around so fast, my glue is not heated up. Alrighty, that is the next row. So we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24. So we used 24 on that row. I'm going to write that down. So row 2, we used 32. Row 3, we used 24 because we put 2 into that each spot. And then row 4, we will be just using 16. And then row 5, we'll be using 4. So it should go fast, really fast now, because these are, there's only 8 of them. Okay, I'm starting wherever, zip it in. So I did cut 2 complete rolls, one of dark pink, one of light pink. I'm not going to be using them all. Which is really good considering I added extra petals on row 3. And I probably will put another 8 on row 1, and let's see how ginormous this thing gets. I would not put green leaves on this flower. I think the green would kind of look funny. So I'm just going to keep it this pink, because, well, everybody knows pink is my favorite color in the whole wide world. You can do this on the small board as well, exactly the same. You just won't have row 1, because row 1 is actually row 2 on the small board. I don't know why this is, I got a big glob of glue there. But when I make flowers, I like to make big ones. I understand people have smaller spaces, such as retirement homes and hospital rooms and stuff like that. But if I'm going to make a flower, I'm going to make a nice big flower that you can see from the Space Center. Almost done. Isn't this looking gorgeous? Okay, let's go around. Now, there's not very much of a gap with this row between zip ties. I still am going to glue it though, for that extra precaution. You just never know when you send it to a customer, they don't know to not grab it by the petals. See, now when you're done, your cleanup is very easy. Okay, last row. Now we could put Actually, I probably, you know what? I do not need to put row 5. Not at all. So I'm going to cut these out. Now, if should you have a smaller center, like I said, I use 5.5 inch styrofoam balls, and you can see it covers everything. If you use a smaller ball, like a 4-inch ball perhaps, you will have to do these 4 to cover some of these zip ties, as the 4-inch ball may not cover these zip ties, as you can see. But this is why I like to use the bigger center ball when I make the flowers. So wait till you guys see how much mesh I still have left from the 2 rolls. And I added extra mesh. So, oh, I'm not finished cutting or folding these. So I have still a whole bucket of petals here with ones I haven't even folded yet. Okay. And then I probably dropped some on the floor too, because I always do. And then I have another bucket of the dark pink. So, now on this row, like I said, row 4, we use 16, 1, 2, I'll leave my finger here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, and we didn't use any on row 5 because my center is quite large. Pass that out. Now, I did say I was going to put some petals on the outside. I just want to show you. I don't know if I'm going to put them on because this flower is quite large. Let's see if I did put them on. It doesn't make a huge difference. So if it was me, I would keep these extra 8 petals that you might have put on the outside to make another flower. Okay, then you could save, because this thing is it's quite large. Like I said, it is about 28 inches in circumference. So it's big. Okay, let's put the center on when we're done. Okay, so this is all secured in here. We got the 4. We did the floral pin in there. And all you're going to do now is go down opposite holes. So you're going to take these 2 pipe cleaners and these 2 pipe cleaners. I'm going to put 1 pipe cleaner here and go down, and go another one here, go down, and here and here. So you're just going to lift this up. Put these 2 going down. And then total right across from each other, these 2 going down, and pull. This is what we got on the back. Give it a twist, a few twists. Same with this one, a few twists. Done. It is, I think, my favorite flower I've ever made. Probably because it's pink, but it screams summer or spring summer. This would be a spring summer all year round thing. Poly burlap is waterproof. Zip ties are waterproof. However, the pom-poms are not. You can, I do have different centers you can make, but the best center to make for a flower wreath, if you are going to put it outside, say on your garden gate or a gravestone or something, is to use deco tubing, because deco tubing itself is also water resistant. So the board's water resistant, the zip ties are water resistant, and if you use a water resistant center, such as deco tubing, and I've done a few tutorials on that, you're good to go outside. Now I twisted the pipe cleaners a little bit and folded them down. I, however, like to go over top with some hot glue, so when it dries, it's like a little bumper, and then there's nothing to scratch on your door. Just like that. And we just have to put our hanger on. Now, you'll see on the outside row, these are that, you can put green leaves here if you'd like. So if I was doing this all yellow, I would probably be doing green leaves going on the outside that'll peek out of the flower. However, I like it just like this, so I'm going to just leave this blank. But you'll see these two holes right here. These are your hanging holes. And on the front of the board, they're indented as well to indicate the hanging holes. You can use string and twine and ribbon and everything you want. I like to use just a zip tie because, again, it's weatherproof. So I'm just going to go down one hole, up the other, give it a few little clicks, snip, where did my snippers go? Snip off the tail, and you have yourself a hanger. And that's almost dry, and there we go. Let me pull this up. Look how pretty this flower is. Isn't that great? Thank you guys for joining me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us or message us. There is plenty of different tutorials on how to make different centers. I have a couple tutorials on how to heat seal or wood burn your poly burlap. And thanks for joining me. And we'll talk to you soon until the next tutorial. Bye, everybody.